Mark, I am working on this article that is revisiting something I wrote 6 years ago about the myths of cloud security. And if there is one that I could put up in neon lights because it seems to endure the test of time, is the cloud is less secure, inherently insecure than on premises. Let's just start with, why do you think that myth exists and why is it going on for so darn long?
Yeah, and I hear the same thing. I heard it when I started working in the cloud over a decade ago, and it continues to this day. It's amazing that it keeps going. And I think it really comes down to what people perceive as how you do traditional security, which is very much like, this is all mine. I need to be able to touch it, hold it, grab onto it. And when you're in the cloud, that's not the case. So that immediately puts them on this suspicious footing of saying, it's not nearly as secure. It won't be as secure because I don't know all the specifics of what's going on. And I think there's a lot of things to untangle even in that. But I think that's really the root cause here, is that lack of comfort.
Yeah, and I mean, there's, I guess, the sense of, I can see the box, so it's protected because it's in my four walls. And I guess I gotta assume it's just kind of a psychological hurdle that many can't get over. Um, what other? I mean, that is kind of the core, I think, is why it endures. But what are sort of other aspects of what makes people feel that? Because I know it's like this feeling that it's a shared resource. My data is mixed up with everybody else's. I don't quote have as much visibility into it. These are the most common ones that I hear. Anything else? And do you agree with those?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I hear them all the time. I disagree with every single one of them.
Yes, I assume. Yeah.
I don't think they hold up, but I think it comes down to that comfort level. Cloud is changing so fast, so that visibility one pops up time and time again, and it always baffles me because as a security practitioner, I find I have way more visibility when I go to the cloud, but it's coming in different ways. I'm getting it from different tools. I need to adjust where I look for things, but I'm getting a much richer understanding of what's going on and the resources that I'm protecting. But I think it's part of that unknown. It's that you have to change how you're doing things, and that leads to this whole well, if I don't understand it, then it's probably not nearly secure as what I'm comfortable with. But there's a thing with that. I'm comfortable with what I've got right now in my four walls. Is the assumption is that that's secure. And I mean, if you look no further than any headline in a week, there's always someone getting breached. So I think there's an overconfidence in what you've got, combined with that lack of understanding of the new stuff, leads to this myth perpetuating.
One of the other myths that I thought was interesting, and this, now I'm going a little deeper dive here, was the myth about that you should go multi-cloud. Now, it seems like there's some arguments pro and against, and there's a theory of, well, it's good to be, quote, diversified. Don't, get all sort of hung up on one cloud over the other. And then also, we had this story we just reported on recently about OVH, that literally their facilities went up in flames and people didn't know what they had bought in terms of backup. And they had some data that was unrecoverable. And so people point to that as like, well, yeah, that's why you need to be, diversified in the cloud. First of all, how well does people know where stuff is? And one of the major arguments against this is learning every cloud platform and how to secure it is a bear. You're nodding on that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so the OVH thing was really, really unfortunate. And it did raise some of these questions. And these are legitimate questions. You need to ask yourself, what level of resiliency do we need? Where do we need, what's our disaster recovery plan? And, I think your article title for that was, my backup plan is whatever my cloud provider is doing.
Yes.
Phrased much better. And I just chuckled when I saw that because I hear that time and time again. So multi-cloud is a thing. But it means something different to everyone. A lot of the time when you braise it up, people go, great, we're going to be equally in cloud 1, cloud 2, and cloud 3. That's impractical. That's just ridiculous. Each major cloud provider has, an area where they're maybe better or a little more advanced than the others. And if that lines up with your technical needs, then it makes sense. Use the best tool for the job within reason. But when it comes to basic computing resources, storage, databases, servers, they're essentially equal. So having spread it across multiple clouds is just increasing your operational burden. You nailed it right on the head. Learning multiple platforms. What is the benefit there? You can get high level of geographic and physical redundancy in each of the clouds. So I think the myth around that you need to go multi-cloud is very much sort of that from way back when. If I never got fired for buying IBM. From the 80s and the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Because it was true. And, to be able to point and say, like, oh, we've got an exit strategy. It sounds good at the board level. It sounds good from a business perspective. But what it doesn't account for is the massive amount of cost and operational effort required to maintain that. And it's rarely worth it at scale.
The multi-cloud issue, and one of the other myths that came up was, well, it's kind of like a utility. They're all kind of the same type thing. But no, like certain ones offer very different services than the other. Is there, and I don't know, and so this may be an incorrect question to even ask, but is there kind of like a brand image of how Azure, AWS, and Google all sort of behave? Like, well, if you want this, go AWS. If you want this, go, Google. If you want this, go Azure. Or is it, there's no way to simplify it like that?
It's never as simple. It's never an easy soundbite, but I do think the big three definitely have flavors. Google has a lower number of services, but those services tend to be a little more refined, and they're done in a very googly way. And if you've ever written code,
a googly way?
If you've ever written code, you'll know. But basically, this is the way you will use the service, and that is it. Like so if you align with that view of the world, that's a really great way to move forward.
Okay.
And of course, that's a big generalization. AWS will give you a tiny building block of anything and everything, and it's up to you to assemble those pieces. And then Microsoft is very much sort of the corporate, very partner friendly, and that's just the flavor, though. Each of them are all very good at the base level of IT stuff. You're not going to go wrong picking any one of the big three, but they do have a flavor, and they do have areas where they're stronger than the others.
So I'm going to ask you one final question. That is, there are dozens upon dozens of myths around cloud security. If you could have one completely resolved by the end of this year, where you don't feel you have to sort of explain it to anybody anymore, everyone gets it, what's the one you just wish would resolve itself?
All of them, but if I had to pick one, it's going to be that the cloud is less secure than on-prem, because I think that just speaks to so many different problems around how security works within the business. It's that assumption that what you do now is great. It's the assumption that this new thing is bad. Where I see it as a huge opportunity for security to not only lighten the load of what you're doing for security work and get better results, but also to transform how the security team works with the business, because the business is transforming how it works by migrating into the cloud. So I would say that one, that the cloud is less secure. If we could bust that, I'd be over the moon happy.
Thank you very much. Mark Nunnikhoven, he's the VP of Cloud Research over at Trend Micro. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.